Welcome to Sounds Like Portraits. I'm Philippe Ungar. This podcast is all about people and creativity. In this episode, you will hear the story of Bertrand Fontaine, who's the president of SalonCentric, a subsidiary of L'Oréal, talking about what inspired him all his life.
All my life, I tried to reinvent the environment I was living in. It's been always trying to build things, whatever it was. I'm a bricoleur, so which means do-it-yourself fan. I have done a full renovation of houses myself. My father was an architect, so that explained a lot. So building organizations, and that's probably today the core of my job, to build organizations, building solutions.
Building solutions, renovating houses. Do you have a plan in mind?
When I was a kid, my plan was to be the successor of Cousteau. After that, I studied philosophy, and my plan was to become a philosophy lecturer. And that didn't work. Then I gave up the academic world to start to sell shampoos, and that's how I entered L'Oréal. So I don't think I never had a sort of clear vision. It's more like opportunities and looking at opportunities of I could do something different and build something.
Would you say that your vision becomes clearer while moving forward?
It's been a mix of finding opportunities to build and to learn maybe about myself, to learn about new worlds. I've been living in different countries, a long time in the UK, some time in Japan. I'm now in the US and I'm French, so I think I've been traveling the world, but not with the idea of trying to move to as many countries or as possible on the country. I like to stay as long as I can in one country, in order to understand how it works and to look at what I could build there.
How do you envision creativity in a company like SalonCentric?
First of all, SalonCentric is a company which is in charge of the distribution of professional products for the L'Oréal organization. In a way, you have three elements in any retail business. One is how to manage your consumers, your customers. The second one is how to manage your inventory. And in between the two is how to manage the cash. So that world, a long time retail was not the place of, or has not been considered as a very creative place. Nevertheless, when you look at the history of retail, there were moments where there was big revolution made by very creative people. When Boussicot created the Bon Marché, first department store in France, which is the same with the Sears in the US, it was a revolution. It's somebody who had the idea that he would create a better conveniency for people when they go to the next biggest city to find a one-stop destination with all the goods that they needed. Then later, some also inventors been creative to invent the supermarkets and to create for the daily shopping a one-stop destination. And today, people like Bezos reinvented the retail with the e-commerce. So yes, it's not the place where you find a lot of creativity, but when you look at it from a historical perspective, there were a lot of revolutions to reinvent the retail. And every time it's been with the idea of creating conveniency for the customers. And that's where it starts to be creative. How you reinvent the customer experience.
What inspires you the most for that?
The inspiration is coming of always looking outside your own box. So going to other domains where you find a different experience. In a world of retail, it sounds a bit bizarre, but sometimes the experience that you get in a restaurant, in the way the restaurants have reinvented their menus or reinvent their menu every time, is an interesting source of inspiration of how you can propose to your customers ways to surprise and at the same time guarantee and reassure them of the quality of what you're going to deliver. Sometimes the best inspiration is coming from something which is very far away from the box in which you manage your business. And to think out of the box is something which is at the same time is very important and also very difficult. And it's not only you as being the leader of the organization, it's to make sure that the rest of the organization can think out of the box.
How do you do to communicate for that?
The moment you share and you make it pretty open, that it is allowed first to think about of the box. Because in a big organization, of course, if you want to make it efficient, there is a minimum number of rules and controls that you need to put in place to make sure that it doesn't become totally chaotic. But at the same time, if the organization is totally dominated by these rules and this control process, this is where you start to kill the productivity. I remember when I was the head of the professional products division in L'Oréal in the UK, we had a visit from Owen Jones, who was the previous CEO of L'Oréal. And there was a traditional dinner after this full day of very intense meeting, and there was a very convivial dinner. In the UK, there was a non-executive chairman. He was in charge of making a welcome speech for the dinner. And he started to say, OJ, we're very happy to have you there. It was a very, very intense meetings, very productive meetings. And you know, the success of L'Oréal in the UK is based on the discipline of the old managers. And OJ looked at him and said, Tom, stop this. I don't want to hear this. So everybody was very surprised and said, why is he stopping this sort of official speech? And he said, L'Oréal will never be about discipline. L'Oréal has been always the balance between being disciplined to make sure that we deliver efficiently, but it's also being about breaking the rules, about being creative. So I don't want to have this apology of discipline. I want people to understand that they need to find the right balance, because our business is about being creative and being innovative all the time.
Why didn't they understand that before?
It was just a reminder. It was understood by everybody. I think it's part of the L'Oréal culture that it's always a balance between having the right organization, but also to reinvent it, to create new products, to be able to re-challenge ourselves. So it's so much part of the culture that it was quite obvious for everybody. But to have the CEO reminding everybody very clearly and very loudly that this is the core of the business, when you have new managers coming from outside the organizations, coming from, a sort of very strict management culture, when they arrive to L'Oréal and say it's a mess, it's totally disorganized. But the reality, it's not. It's sort of organized chaos in order to make sure that the organization is still able to deliver what they need to deliver, but at the same time to have the creativity to reinvent, to find new opportunities and to create new products.
Are you sometimes inspired by your competitors?
Yes, because this is the nature of the business, to look at the competition. But there is always a danger to when you are too much inspired by your competitor, there is a tendency to do a Me Too product or Me Too to try to respond and to enter in the same logic as your competitor.
To react.
Just to react and to enter in the rules of the or the new rules of the game they invented. So if there is an inspiration when you look at the competitors, to try to think how different I can be. How can I be as far away I can from the rules of the game they try to play. So to look at competition is more to try to be something totally different.
What should someone who works with you know about your personal background?
I'm not sure that the background of leaders is not that important. So the important is more how clear they are about the vision they have. They're not only clear in the way they express it, but in the way they act it. By sense, as a leader, you are a role model. People read you. Every act you do, every move you do is not a simple move. It's read by everybody as having a meaning. That's something I learned, before in the US, because before I arrived to SalonCentric, I was running businesses for L'Oréal, where there were teams of 200, 400 people, and very quickly, I wouldn't say that you know them all, but you know very quickly most of them. Today, I'm leading an organization with 4,000 people. And of course, it's a very different way of communicating. It's a very different way of acting. if it helps to communicate the message by giving stories or opening a bit about who I am, yes, but it's more with a purpose to make sure that they understand the clarity of the vision, what are the guidelines, how far we want to go, and what is the journey we want to build together to make the success of the company.
Are there guidelines to improve creativity in a company for you?
I'm not sure if there are guidelines. Precisely is to remove the rules and to make people comfortable enough to re-challenge the existing situation. And that, it's very important to demonstrate almost symbolically that it's allowed to question the rules, to open the box. Being a leader is it's a bit of a schizophrenic situation from this point of view, because you're there to make sure that the organization is under control and is really moving along the way that you design and the strategy that you've decided. But at the same time, if that whole system is too rigid, is not open, you miss a lot of opportunities, you miss a lot of contributions from people, and you get trapped by your own vision. So to allow people, to make people comfortable, to express themselves, to re-challenge what has been done, to invent other ways to do things, it's probably one of the core mission of any leader. If yourself, you don't help people who are creative, who have new idea, to succeed and move from just being an idea to being a project and then a success, you need to help them to remove some rules and to say, well, in that case, yes, that was a rule, but now we decided to change it.
You encourage your teams to take risks.
Yes, with also to encourage risk doesn't mean to encourage people to jump in the void. It's also to help them to build what will avoid this new idea to become a disaster. So it's all about removing obstacles that will allow people to develop their own ideas, to put in place a new way of working. But it's also to help them to ensure that it's going to fit with the organization and to make them realize that, yes, this is new, when we will have to make sure that this new idea is not going to put in danger the existing organization. So it's always a question of measure, of balance in between opening the box, but making sure that when we open the box, we don't destroy completely the rest of the organization.
About this balance between creativity and management, communication is a key word. How do you do to ensure that the communication works well for that purpose?
Well, in a big organization, communication is, there are systems for that. So you have people in charge of communication, and we have one person in charge of internal communication. You have different technologies. So, for example, every quarter I do a podcast and talk about our results, but also talk about new initiatives that are driving the business. But these systems are not enough, because this is at the end of just communication precisely. What is important is to use the communication, the sort of natural communication, the buzz or the word of mouth within the organization. And when I do a store visit, for example, I make sure that I make precise comments, and I know that by making those comments, especially with the use today of social media, Twitter, Instagram, that the store team that I visit, they're going to communicate with other people. And then when I come back to the office a few days later, already my direct reports know what happened during the visit and say, this is an interesting idea, or Bertrand, be careful, this idea is not so good. And so that creates a new exchange within my management team. That is interesting because I know that every store visit is creating discussion, which are spread in a very organic way within the organization. So what is going to happen, not only the word of mouth is going to relate what I said or whatever I did in the store, But on the top of that, there will be all the comments made by the different layers of management, which is also very interesting. And that's if you allow it to make it very transparent. It's a source of inspiration and allow us to have better innovations.
What are the most rewarding aspects for you of being president at SalonCentric?
It's about building SalonCentric is the result of the acquisition of 14 different distributors in the US. Each distributor was a small regional family business, and we transform it in a pretty short period of time as a one national distributor. We're doing $1 billion of, a bit more than $1 billion of sales. There are 600 stores, almost the same number of sales representatives on the road. So it's becoming a big national organization. So to turn around this organization from being small, local, family-run businesses into a big national organization has required a lot of efforts from all the teams. But at the same time, what we wanted is not to lose touch with the customers and to stay very local in the way we work. There is always the risk when you build a big organization that what you do is to build a big corporation, a big bureaucracy. And we wanted to stay very local. And the store managers for us are, and I'm very often saying that our stores are community centers for hairdressers. So they don't only go to our stores to get products, to buy products, but also they can get education. So they are in our stores education studios. There are also events, photographic exhibition, yoga sessions. So there are a lot of different activities and events which are there to create this feel of a community center, but at the end of the day, from a business point of view, to increase the engagement and the loyalty of our customers, to be more than a transactional retailer. So in a pretty short period of year, the consolidation of all these acquired distributors started in 2012, and the transformation was almost finished by the end of 2014. And 2015 was the first year of being back to growth and profit.
What is your strongest memory about that?
Probably it's the difficulty when you want to do a turnaround is to find the moment where you're going to crystallize the energies, where people suddenly say, yes, we believe in that. Because you can have the most beautiful plans and the most well-constructed strategies. If people don't believe in it, if the teams don't feel completely connected with it, they're half convinced, so they're just intellectually convinced, but not really deep in their hearts. And to find this moment is a question of luck, and it takes time. In the UK, when I had to do this turnaround, it took me a while to understand that we needed to focus the organization on the link between L'Oréal and fashion. So that suddenly people say, yes, that's right. And we built up a partnership at the time with the Central St. Martin School of Fashion in London. And people say, yes, we really are creative people. We are what we should be. It took me probably a year or two to find this moment where this would excite the imagination of the team and make them believe that the project would work. Here in SalonCentric, it took me 2 weeks to find it by pure random. And that's a very vivid memory, because I remember when I arrived, I've of course talked to all the managers, all my direct reports, and I was writing notes. And at one moment, 2 weeks after I arrived, I said, it's funny. In this professional product business, there is one element which is fundamental to drive the business. It's education. Can't be a professional product without education, without somebody to know how to use it. And therefore, if you want to deliver to the market professional products, you need to deliver the education which goes with it. And I said, it's funny, in 15 days, I had so many complaints, but nobody is talking about education. People were so obsessed at the time, we need to improve the distribution centers, we need to improve the stores, that they completely forgot what is the essence of this industry, which is every time you deliver a product, you need to deliver education. And I said to them, guys, it's funny, nobody talked to me about education. And then I could see in their eyes, yes, oh, you're right, we forgot something. And very quickly, we moved into a sort of campaign which has been called Shop and Learn, which was the first step of the transformation of SalonCentric, which was to transform stores, transactional stores, in education centers. That's a very, very, very vivid memory, and I could see I could still see myself writing, but none of them talked about education, and to underline it 2 times.
That's the last step of the interview. I'm gonna leave the room, hold the microphone, and add whatever you want to the interview.
To be interviewed is always a changing experience because it obliges you to think on what is the meaning of what you do. And I must admit that these sort of ritual questions of all my life I've been doing this, all my life I've been doing that, which is the start of all your interviews, is something that I never had time to think of, and which I find at the same time disturbing because I'm not sure that I have a plan and a design for my life. But at the same time, I need to recognize that there is hopefully some kind of consistency, and that building is probably the word which makes a good summary of what I believe in.
Thank you, Bertrand Fontaine, for sharing your inspiring story about SalonCentric. This is Sounds Like Portraits, a podcast by Philippe Ungar. Music, Charmeuse de Serpent, performed by the Brooklyn Orchestra, composed and conducted by Olivier Glisson. See you soon for the next episode.